これでいいや。Okay, so I want to start Ashcroft&Mermin. So I have a compass page here and blue cat page here. Okay, and in Twitter you can just click with let me see, where is it? In Twitter, sorry. This one. You can click this one. Ashcroft&Mermin is only my. No one else uses this hashtag. So I have Ashcroft&Mermin. Then let me see. I have blue cat and compass. You can see the Amazon. This is the Amazon. So this is a pretty famous book. It has 848 pages. And I don't know if I can finish this whole book. But I will try. Then, I forgot to put YouTube link. Let's see. This is the YouTube. So I will put. I don't know if I will put. 編集。Put YouTube link. This way. Save. Copy. YouTube link. Okay, it should be okay. Also have to have a compass. Let me see, where is it? Here. Yes. Then either in blue cat or compass, I uploaded textbook. This one, PDF. Yes, like this. So I start from preface. Yeah. Preface. We began this project in 1968, 54 years ago, to fill a gap we each felt. Each, I think, means Ashcroft and Mermin. Each felt acutely, what is acutely? After several years of teaching, acutely, let's see, acutely,激しく鋭く We felt accurately after several years of teaching introductory solid-state physics to Cornell students of physics, chemistry, engineering, and material science. In both undergraduate and graduate courses, we had to resort to a patchwork array of reading assignments assembled from some half-dozen texts and treatises. Treatise. I don't know how to pronounce this. Treatise. Half-dozen texts and treatises. This was only partly because of the great diversity of the subject. The main problem lay in its dual nature. Dual.二つの二次元的な二つの dual nature. On the one hand, an introduction to solid-state physics must describe in some detail the vast range of real solids, with an emphasis on representative data and illustrative examples. On the other hand, there is now a well-established basic theory of solids with which any seriously interested student must become familiar. Rather, to our surprise, it has taken us 7 years to produce what we needed: a single introductory text presenting both aspects of the subject, descriptive and analytical. Our aim has been to explore the variety of phenomena associated with the major forms of crystalline matter while laying the foundation for a working understanding of solids through clear, detailed, and elementary treatments of fundamental theoretical concepts. Our book is designed for introductory courses at either the undergraduate or graduate level. Footnote 1. What is footnote? Suggestions for how to use the text in courses of varying lengths and level are given on pp 18 to 21. Okay, I will skip this part. Statistical mechanics and quantum theory lie at the heart of solid-state physics. Although these subjects are used as needed, we have tried, especially in the more elementary chapters, to recognize that many readers, particularly undergraduates, will not yet have acquired expertise. When it is natural to do so, we have clearly separated topics. Based entirely on classical method from those demanding a quantum treatment. When it is natural to do so, we have clearly separated topics based entirely on classical method from those demanding a quantum treatment. In the latter case, and in application of statistical mechanics, we have proceeded carefully from explicitly stated first principle. In the latter case means a quantum treatment, and in applications of statistical mechanics, we have proceeded carefully from explicitly stated first principles. The book is therefore suitable for introductory course taken concurrently with first courses in quantum theory and statistical mechanics. Only in the more advanced chapters and appendices do we assume a more experienced readership. The problems that follow each chapter are tied rather closely to the text. Problems that follow each chapter are tied rather closely to the text and are of three general kinds. A. Routine steps in analytical development are sometimes relegated to problems. なんでしょうね。委任する。Routine steps in analytical development are sometimes relegated to problems, partly to avoid burdening the text with formulas of no intrinsic interest, but more importantly, because such steps are better understood if completed by the reader with the aid of hints and suggestions. B. Extensions of the chapter which the spectre of a 2-volume work prevented us from including. Spectre. spectre. What is spectre? Ghost. Spectre. Spectre. Which is the spectre of two-volume work prevented us I don't understand.あ、2巻の作品になる可能性があるため収録を見送りました。そうだそうです。Extension of the chapter are presented as problems when they lend themselves to this type of exposition.難しいですね。これは何？このような解説に適しているんです。Extensions of the chapter are presented as problems when they lend themselves to this type of exposition. Further numerical and analytical applications are given as problems, either to communicate additional information or to exercise newly acquired skills. Readers should therefore examine the problems even if they do not intend to attempt their solution. Although we have respected the adage Although we have respected adage that one picture is worth 1,000 words. 百聞は一見にしかず。One picture is worth 1,000 words. We are also aware that an informative illustration, though decorative, takes up the space that could usefully be filled by several hundred. なんじゃこれは。Let me see. Let me try just copy. copy.費用がかかる。takes up the space that could usefully be an informative illustration, though decorative, takes up the space that could be usefully be filled by several hundreds. なんだそれ。several hundred words. Anyway, the reader will thus encounter stretches of expository prose unrelieved by figures when none are necessary, as well as sections that can profitably be perused entirely by looking at the figures and their captions. わからんなこれ。OK。The reader will thus encounter stretches of expository prose unrelieved by figures when none are necessary, and their captions. Thus encounter stretches. The reader will thus encounter stretches of expository prose unrelieved by figures. When none are necessary, as well as sections that can profitably be perused entirely by looking at the figures and the caption. Okay, the reader will thus encounter stretches of expository prose unrelieved by figures. Unrelieved by figures. これがわかんないね。Unrelieved.救済されていない、変化のない。Reader will encounter stretches of expository prose unrelieved by figures when none are necessary. When no figures are necessary, reader will thus encounter sections that can profitably be perused perused, peruse, 熟読する、profitably perused, profitably perused, profitably perused, and entirely by looking at the figures and their captions. We anticipate use of the book as different levels with different areas. We anticipate use of the book at different levels with different areas of major emphasis. A particular course is unlikely to follow the chapters or even selected chapters in the order in which they are presented here, and we have written them in a way that permits easy selection and rearrangement. Number 2. The table on pp 14 to 21 lists the prerequisites for each chapter to aid those interested primarily in one aspect of the subject, or those preferring a different order of presentation. OK。どういった？これか。Our particular choice of sequence follow certain major strands of the subject from their first elementary exposition to their more advanced aspects, with a minimum of digression. Their first elementary exposition to their more advanced aspects. We begin the book with the elementary classical and quantum aspects of the free electron theory of metals because this requires a minimum of background and immediately introduces through a particular class of examples almost all the phenomena with which theories of insulators, semiconductors, and metals must come to grips. Number 3. References to chapter numbers are given in bracket. Chapter number. Elementary classical theory, chapter 1, and quantum aspects of free electron theory of metal is chapter 2, because this requires a minimum background and immediately introduces through a particular class of examples almost all the phenomena with which theories of insulators, semiconductors, and metals must come to grips.何グリプスってないグリプスグリップグリップグリップグリップス OK グリップスなんだっけwith which grip難しいねさあなんていう対応しなければ対応しなければmust come to grips with The reader is thereby spared the impression that nothing can be understood until a host of arcane definitions relating to periodic structures and elaborate quantum mechanical explorations of periodic system have been mastered. やばいなこれ一個一個。What is this? 読者を難解な定義周期構造に関連するや精巧な説明をしないと何も理解できないという印象を受けることはない周期系の量子力学的な探求をマスターすることができた the reader is thereby spared the impression that nothing can be understood. スペアードってなんだろうね。スペア。スペア。惜しんで使わない。老惜しむ。Reader is thereby spared the impression that nothing can be understood until a host of arcaneスペアなんだよ。スペア使わない、取っておく、控える。使わない、取っておく。arcane一部の人にしか理解できない門外漢には理解しがたい難解なReader thereby spared the impression that nothing can be understood. スペアはわかんないね。なしで済ませる。なしで済ませる。なしで済ませる。なしで済ませるか。The reader is thereby spared the impression that nothing can be understood until a host of arcane definitions relating to periodic structures and elaborate quantum mechanical explorations of periodic systems has been mastered until a host of arcane definitions andホストってなんだよな。ホスト。亭主。ホスト。主人。until a host of arcane definitions and elaborate quantum mechanical explorations have been mastered. Anyway, periodic structures are introduced only after a survey of those metallic properties that can and cannot be understood without investigating the consequences of periodicity. That is chapter 3. This is discussed in chapter 3. We have tried to alleviate the tedium induced by a first exposure to the language of periodic systems by separating the very important consequences of pure translational symmetry, which is chapters 4 and 5, from the remaining but rather less essential rotational aspect, which is chapter 7b, separating the descriptions in ordinary space, which is chapter 4, from that in the less familiar reciprocal space, which is chapter 5, and separating the abstract and descriptive treatment of periodicity from its elementary application to X-ray diffraction, which is chapter 6. さあどうなるでしょうか。これをディープ L やってみよう。ディープ L。なんだこれ。We have tried to alleviate the tedium 退屈か tedium って退屈 induced by a first exposure to the language of periodic systems by separating the very important consequences of purely translational symmetry from the remaining but rather less essential rotational aspects separating the description in ordinary space from that in the less familiar reciprocal space and separating the abstract and descriptive treatment of periodicity from its elementary application to X-ray diffraction, Okay. Armed with the terminology of periodic systems, readers can pursue to whatever point seems appropriate the resolution of the difficulties in the free electron model of metals, or alternatively can embark directly upon the investigation of lattice vibration. さあ、よし、これはArmed with the terminology of periodic systems, readers can pursue to whatever point seems appropriate the resolution of difficulties in the free electron model of metals, or alternatively can embark directly upon the investigation of lattice vibrations. Whatever point seems appropriate. Whatever point seems appropriate. The resolution of the difficultyこれはこういうことだな。これはね、こうじゃない。The readers can pursue the resolution of the difficulties in the free electron model of metals to whatever point seems appropriate, or alternatively, readers can embark directly upon the investigation of lattice vibration. これ入れてみようか。これをここに入れてみよう。Armed with the terminology of periodic systems, readers can pursue the resolution of the difficulties in the free electron model of metals to whatever point seems appropriate, or alternatively, readers can embark directly upon the investigation of lattice vibrations. こういうことね。さあ、時間がなくなってきたな。どうしようかな。まだまだね。まだまだ続く。この辺にしとくか。どういう風にしようかな。プリフェイス4までやろうか。The book follows the first line. First line. Bloch theorem. First line. Book follows the first line. どういう意味follow the first line. Bloch theorem is described and its implications examined in Chapter 8 in general terms to emphasize that its consequences transcend the illustrative and very important practical cases of nearly free electrons, which is in Chapter 9, and tight binding, which is Chapter 10. Bloch theorem is described and its implications examined in general terms to emphasize that its consequences transcend the illustrative and very important practical cases of nearly free electrons and tight binding model. Transcend なんですか。transcend はい。上回る exceed transcend emphasize that its consequences transcend the illustrative and very important practical cases. Transcend どういう意味？交差したり通り抜けること、または圧倒すること、超える超越する。Bloch theorem to emphasize that the consequences of Bloch theorem transcend the illustrative and very important practical cases of nearly free electrons and tight binding model. Much of the content of these two chapters is suitable for a more advanced course, as is the following survey of method used to compute real band structures, which is chapter 11. Suitable for a more advanced course, as is the following survey of method used to compute real band structures. The remarkable subject of semi-classical mechanics is introduced, and given elementary applications, which is chapter 12, before being incorporated into the more elaborate semi-classical theory of transport, which is chapter 13. The description of method by which film surfaces are measured, chapter 14, may be more suitable for advanced readers, but much of the survey of the band structures of actual metals, which is chapter 15, is readily incorporated into an elementary course. はい、じゃあここまでにしましょう。Preface 4. Okay, see you next time.